the issues, but above all, we know the players to bring you the latest in-depth analysis on all the key stories that we're covering. I'm Eric Ham. Join me from Washington here on Firstpost America. Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Firstpost America. Today we have the latest on all the top stories coming out of the United States as well as from around the world. We're here to break it all down, but first, the headlines. The United States shuts down its embassy in Ukraine's capital Kyiv, anticipating Russian strikes. The move comes after Ukraine used U.S. missiles to strike military targets nearly 100 miles inside Russia. President-elect Donald Trump names WWE co-founder Linda McMahon as the Secretary of Education. This despite McMahon being named to a lawsuit alleging that she took part in systemic and pervasive abuse of underage children. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu visits Gaza and offers Hamas $5 million for the release of each hostage. Israel estimates over 100 hostages are still being held captive by Hamas. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi gets a grand welcome as he begins his two-day visit to the South American nation of Guyana. This is the first visit by an Indian Prime Minister to oil-rich Guyana in over 5 decades. And the United States officially dismisses Nicolas Maduro's July re-election and recognizes opposition candidate Edmundo Gonzalez as the president-elect. Secretary of State Antony Blinken says Washington respects the will of the Venezuelan voters. We begin in the United States, where Republican representative from South Carolina Nancy Mace has stirred a massive controversy with a bill to keep transgender women from using women's bathrooms at the Capitol. The bill is in direct response to the election of Democrat Sarah McBride, a representative-elect from Delaware, who is set to become the first openly transgender member of Congress in January. Asked why she introduced the contentious bill, Mace said she is a victim of sexual assault and a biological man walking into a women's restroom triggers her trauma.
I'm a victim of abuse myself. I'm a rape survivor. I have PTSD from the abuse I've suffered at the hands of a man. And I know how vulnerable women and girls are in private spaces. So I'm absolutely 100% going to stand in the way of any man who wants to be in a women's restroom, in our locker rooms, in our changing rooms. I will be there fighting you every step of the way.
Now, Congresswoman Mace further said that she wants her resolution to be included in the House rules package for the next Congress. Mace has also indicated that if the bill fails, she will file it again in the next congressional session. The two-page resolution bans House members and staffers from using single-sex facilities other than those corresponding to their biological sex. It covers bathrooms in the Capitol and allows the House Sergeant-at-Arms to enforce the prohibition. Meanwhile, Republican Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene went so far as to threaten McBride to a physical fight.
You know, Sarah McBride, as he calls himself, formerly Tim McBride, is a biological man, and he should not be using any of our restrooms in the Capitols, in our office buildings. But Nancy Mace's resolution doesn't go far enough. A resolution is just a statement by Congress saying that Congress disagrees with something. We need something more binding, and that's what I just brought up at the microphones there in our conference, is I directly asked Speaker Johnson what the men in our leadership are going to do about this.
Now, the bill comes as no surprise, as Republicans have spent the last 2 years in the House proposing legislation to roll back transgender rights. Meanwhile, Republican-led states have been trying to pass laws to prevent transgender people from using single-sex bathrooms in government buildings. And throughout his campaign, President-elect Donald Trump's strategy was to paint Vice President Kamala Harris as a radical on transgender issues. The deeply contentious issue has put House Speaker Mike Johnson in a difficult position.
For anybody who doesn't know my well-established record on this issue, let me be unequivocally clear. A man is a man, and a woman is a woman, and a man cannot become a woman. That said, I also believe, that's what Scripture teaches, what I just said, but I also believe that we treat everybody with dignity. And so we can do and believe all those things at the same time.
Now, Sarah McBride has responded to the latest bill, calling it a blatant attempt from far-right-wing extremists to distract from the real problems Americans face every single day. Other Democrats, including Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Senator Chuck Schumer, said the proposal is plain bullying, mean, and cruel. Sarah McBride's election has clearly made Republicans uncomfortable even before her arrival at the Capitol. Now, of course, it is ironic that this very hot-button issue that many Republicans ran on is now staring them directly in the face inside the halls of power. Which direction lawmakers decide to take is unknown, but what we do know is that members are already drawing battle lines when it comes to transgender rights. SpaceX's Starship rocket lit up the Texas sky on Tuesday night, pushing the boundaries of space exploration, but not without drama. The rocket's Super Heavy booster, meant to land in a spectacular chopstick catch, plunged into the Gulf of Mexico in a fiery explosion. President-elect Donald Trump, standing alongside Elon Musk, called the mission incredible despite the setback. What's next for Musk's Mars mission and Donald Trump's space agenda? Our next report has the latest.
SpaceX's Starship rocket roared to life on Tuesday, marking another major step in Elon Musk's quest to make humans a multiplanetary species. The 400-foot-tall rocket launched from Boca Chica, Texas, reaching new milestones in spaceflight.
That's the ship that is now going around the Earth. So if you want to maybe get a better view, if you come, let's go.
But not without a fiery setback. The mission began with promise. At 4 p.m. local time, the Starship lifted off, aiming to test critical upgrades. The rocket's Super Heavy booster detached successfully at 40 miles above Earth, allowing the Starship's second stage to continue its journey. Starship achieved partial orbit and re-entered the atmosphere before splashing down into the ocean around 90 minutes after liftoff.
And what an incredible view of splashdown that we got today.
For the first time, SpaceX reignited Starship's Raptor engine in space, which is an essential step towards orbital missions. NASA's Bill Nelson called it major progress, cementing Starship's role in the Artemis program to return astronauts to the moon by 2026 and set sights on Mars. However, the mission wasn't flawless. SpaceX had hoped to repeat its dramatic chopstick catch, where the Super Heavy booster is caught by mechanical arms on the launch tower. Instead, the booster veered off course, splashing down in the Gulf of Mexico and erupting into a fiery explosion.
Wow. Incredible. We really pushed the limits on shipping and made it all the way back.
But the setback didn't dampen the historic occasion, which was attended by US President-elect Donald Trump. Musk and his first buddy watched from SpaceX's control tower, calling the launch incredible. For the past 2 weeks, Trump has not gone anywhere without Musk. From joining Trump at a meeting with House Republicans in Washington to sitting next to him at an Ultimate Fighting Championship match in New York. The buddies are spotted at main events, always cheering one another. Trump has even made space exploration a priority for his presidency, and Musk's ambitions align perfectly. Musk aims to launch uncrewed missions to Mars by 2026, coinciding with the next Earth-Mars transfer window.
SpaceX also intends to take humans to the surface of Mars. In addition, there are other customers. There's the Department of Defense, and there's private customers that intend to take use of Starship. Starship is the biggest and most powerful rocket ever built. It's bigger than Saturn V, which took astronauts to the moon in the 1960s and 70s.
Now, even though SpaceX has achieved an engineering marvel and congratulatory messages from around the world poured in for the SpaceX CEO, there are two people who prefer to remain tight-lipped: President Joe Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris. Last month, after SpaceX caught a rocket booster mid-air, social media users pointed out that how the president and vice president didn't bother to pay heed to Musk's achievements, calling the Democrat duo un-American and petty. Ex-users asked if the Biden-Harris administration will congratulate Elon Musk. Even though Musk's Super Heavy booster suffered a fiery end this time, SpaceX's ambitions remain undeterred. Each test brings the company closer to revolutionizing space travel. As Musk puts it, thousands of small design changes are being tested. The Gulf may have claimed the booster, but Starship's mission is far from over. Will SpaceX perfect its reusable rocket design? And will President Biden and Vice President Harris even appreciate Elon Musk's efforts? Because the countdown to the next launch has already begun.
And staying in the United States, ahead of President-elect Donald Trump's inauguration, America's second largest city, Los Angeles, has moved to declare itself a sanctuary city for illegal immigrants. The city council has unanimously passed an ordinance that will ban the use of local resources, including city officials and property, to detain someone as part of a federal immigration enforcement effort. It will also ban data sharing between city officials and federal agencies.
Given the re-election of Donald Trump and the consistent hate speech towards undocumented people and mixed status families, I can't think of a more pressing issue than this one today. Sanctuary cities are not just a legal framework, but they represent a moral commitment to upholding human dignity, protecting families, and ensuring that everyone, regardless of their immigrating status, can live without fear.
Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass will sign the new resolution, which will come into effect 10 days after her signature. Meanwhile, the Los Angeles public school system has also passed some emergency resolutions, including protections for unauthorized migrants and implementation of respectful treatment of LGBTQ+ community members. Clearly, the city is gearing up for what could be deeply contentious fights with President-elect as he prepares to crack down on illegal immigration. On Monday, Trump confirmed that he will declare a national emergency and use the military to deport millions of migrants. However, Los Angeles lawmakers say they will do everything to protect these vulnerable communities.
If we know anything about the person who just won the election, we know that their bark is their bark and their bark matches their bite.
And we know that women should be able to report domestic violence and seek justice. Kids should be able to go to school, and families should be able to go to public libraries without the fear that doing so would tear their families apart. So by passing this law today, we are making sure that we are keeping our friends, family, neighbors, and coworkers safe.
Meanwhile, pro-immigrant advocates say they are concerned about the president-elect's deportation plans as Los Angeles boasts a large number of immigrants.
We are extremely concerned, given that this is a city where about a third of the population is immigrants. We are all extremely concerned, worried, panicked, afraid that the National Guard or other people are going to be forced to execute Trump's mass deportation plans. But we're also organized. We've been through this before. We know how to respond. We have a lot of tools at our disposal, including the legal system, including the strength in our communities. So we also know that we can fight back with power.
The Republican Party has stated that perpetrators should not be protected by the hard-earned money of taxpayers.
The so-called sanctuary cities and states sound warm and fuzzy, but the protections they offer aren't for as well as getting ice cream. They're for people who've entered the country illegally and committed additional crimes.
Donald Trump's border czar pick, Tom Homan, has repeatedly said that sanctuary city designations would not keep the Trump administration from achieving its immigration goals. Los Angeles also declared itself a city of sanctuary during Donald Trump's first term. However, it was only done through a resolution and executive directive. The latest ordinance will now enshrine the protections for illegal migrants in city law and give more weight to Los Angeles as a sanctuary city. Other American cities such as Chicago, San Francisco, and New York also have their own sanctuary city laws aimed at protecting undocumented migrants. And now to the Caribbean nation of Haiti, where gangs launched a large-scale attack in one of the most upscale neighborhoods in the capital, Port-au-Prince, on Tuesday. Loaded in trucks and buses, hundreds of gang members stormed into the most posh areas of the Haitian capital. However, in a surprising twist, civilians picked up weapons and fought the gangs alongside police forces. Residents and police officials erected barricades in the upscale Pétionville and forced the gang members into narrow alleyways where they were gunned down. Local media reports said that in a fit of rage, the civilians beheaded the dead bodies of the gang members and set them on fire. Locals say they felt empowered after handing Jimmy Chedizier's gang a brutal defeat.
Since midnight, they've just brought men here, armed to the teeth, youths and women with suitcases on their backs, full of ammunition and weapons. Us, the population of Gros Morne, we do not know who sent them, if it is the member of the government, if it is Barbecue, if it is Vital Home, or whoever sent them here. We sent them a clear answer. We're not going to give up the area. We're not going to leave the area. And the day we rise up, nobody will stop us, neither the government nor the bandits, nor anyone else who's stopping us from living. We're asking for unity because no one will force us to flee our neighborhood.
Haiti's national police spokesperson has put the death toll at 30, with at least 28 being gang members. Authorities added that several other gang members had been wounded in the firefight but have gone into hiding since the shootout. Haiti's police chief lauded the incredible fight put up by the local residents who only had stones and bottles with which to fight. However, the civilians say they only picked up the weapons to fight the gangs because the Haitian government is incapable of providing them security.
I took shelter in the Ministry of National Education in Nazon, and the state could not give us security to stay there. Celino fought to resist. We fought with stones, with bottles. Today we find ourselves in this situation, fleeing and running. The state does not provide us security. There are a lot of gang members who were killed by the police and the public. Those who run away go into hiding.
After the shootout, locals were seen looting weapons and ammunition off the dead bodies of the gang members. And the police and local-led response to armed gangs has turned out to be a disaster for the criminals. However, with civilians now being forced to pick up arms and defend themselves, how does it reflect on Haiti's leadership and military who have failed to protect millions of innocents from armed gangs? And finally, passengers traveling from Canada to India are now facing stricter security screenings. Canadian officials announced that new measures citing an abundance of caution. People flying to India have been told to arrive at least 4 hours before departure and are being subjected to forced hand swabs and random pre-boarding screenings. The inconvenience to India-bound passengers is the latest escalation in tensions between Canada and India, which are now at a historic low. Our final report has more.
Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau continues to stumble on the global stage. His policies and actions are dragging Canada into a deeper diplomatic and domestic chaos. The latest, enhanced security screening for India-bound flyers, a move that stems from the ongoing tensions with New Delhi. Canadian Transport Minister Anita Anand announced the measures, citing an abundance of caution. In a statement to CBC, she said passengers travelling from Canada to India are now advised to arrive at airports 4 hours early. Even Air Canada, in a warning to flyers, stated that the enhanced protocols against people travelling to India would cause long delays. Toronto's Pearson Airport also confirmed the changes, with travellers already reporting slower processing times. A government official told CBC that among the screening conducted by the Canadian Air Transport Security Authority, India-bound passengers will be required to provide hand swabs, send carry-on bags through X-ray machines, and be pulled up for random physical screenings. Ottawa's steps come amid Trudeau's explosive allegations that Indian agents were involved in the killing of Khalistani terrorist Hardeep Singh Nijjar, a Canadian citizen designated as a terrorist by India. But Trudeau is yet to produce any evidence for his claims.
There are credible reasons to believe that agents of the government of India were involved in the killing of a Canadian on Canadian soil. That is something of the utmost and foundational importance in a country of rule of law, in a world where international rules-based order matters.
While Trudeau's claim of credible allegations have been slammed by New Delhi as absurd and motivated, both nations have since expelled top diplomats, plunging ties to a historic low. India, on the other hand, has maintained its stance. New Delhi highlights that the real issue lies with Trudeau's embrace of Khalistani extremists and anti-India elements. These groups operate freely on Canadian soil, threatening India's sovereignty and stability. But Trudeau seems more interested in pandering to domestic political factions than addressing legitimate security concerns. And Trudeau's chaos doesn't stop there. Gurpatwant Singh Pannu, a Khalistani terrorist who has a dual Canadian and American citizenship, issued threats against Air India flights just last month. But despite these provocations, Canada has failed to curb these extremist activities. Meanwhile, Canada's immigration system is spiraling out of control. Trudeau admitted mistakes in managing immigration, blaming bad actors like fake colleges and corporations for exploiting the system. And now, to mend those mistakes, Canada is slashing immigration targets to 20%. Temporary residents, including international students and foreign workers, will also face reduced numbers. These changes disproportionately affect Indians, who are the largest group of immigrants in Canada. With each passing day, the situation only gets worse for Canada. Over 700,000 undocumented Indians are on a move to the US. Tragic stories like families freezing to death near the border highlight the human cost of Trudeau's failing policies. In short, Justin Trudeau's leadership, or lack thereof, is a case study in mismanagement. His misguided decisions are alienating allies, harming immigrants, and plunging Canada into crisis. A question looms: when will this Prime Minister finally step up and take responsibility?
That's our show for today. We certainly thank you so much for tuning in, everyone. Have a great rest of your day, and we look forward to seeing you right back here again tomorrow. Thanks again for watching. From impeachments to inaugurations, if it's a political story, we are on the scene. If it's breaking news, we're live with the latest coverage. From the White House, the State Department, and Capitol Hill, we know the issues, but above